Alright guys, a little pro tip for you. You got your typical Senko, Yum Dinger, whatever, stick bait. Most people run them, the wacky rig or Texas rig is the most common, but there's a few other techniques that you can do that require some sort of nail weight, unattached weight that's just in the plastic itself. So Nico rig, and then there's another rig which I'm showing here, which is called the Child rig or the Texas Ned. So your weight is down here on the end, and then your Texas rigged weedless, and then your line is up here. So your movement, it's going to be, you're going to have that straight up and down peg type action. It's going to be a little bit different than a Ned rig. But the thing about this rig is it will go through anything, weeds, wood, rocks. You won't have that problem of getting hung up as much. Like, you'll probably never get hung up with this rig, unless your hook point comes out and catches on wood. But you won't have the problem with the weight getting wedged in rocks, as well as you'll have a weighted rig that won't pick up any weeds, because you're going to be just, dragging it over the weeds. So it's a pretty cool rig. You can buy the screw-in weights or the nail weights. One of the things I do is I just use a regular bullet weight. Take something like a file, something sharp, stick it up in there, make a hole, and then you just push that worm weight up in there, and use a little bit of CA glue. So that works really good if you got a bunch of worm weights already laying around. And you'll still be able to feel, even with that weight fully encased in there. The nice thing is it's completely seamless, so you won't have any weeds getting hung up on it. But you'll still be able to feel the bottom pretty well. And that's a 3/16. You can easily get a 3/16 in there without splitting it out in a standard Senko. You kind of want to stick to a smaller hook. Like, you don't want your hook to be way back here, because you do need some action. You need some. This is going to take up some of that bending. You're not going to run these worms as short as like a typical Ned rig, like 3 inches. You don't want them too long either, because that's kind of going to take away from some of that straight up and down peg action. So I usually cut them down to like 4 inches. That seems to be just about right, like between 3.5 to 4. Maybe like 4.5 at the longest. But I would go with either a 1/0. This is a 2/0. You could go down as low as a number 1 EWG. You really don't want to go any bigger though than a 2/0. Just so you have enough movement on the end there, especially if you're cutting your worms down or going with a shorter worm. If the shorter it is, the smaller the hook you want. So you just have to experiment with that. But these baits do pretty well. I've tested them out. The bass like them. Like I said, you can throw this bait pretty much anywhere. It's not going to get snagged like a wacky rig or a Nico. The EWG hooks definitely work the best. I wouldn't bother using like a Nico hook or anything like that. Stick with the EWG. That's going to have the best alignment with the bait. And also, when you text pose it, it's going to keep that bait as straight as possible. Then you're just gonna have better hookup ratios. But yeah, guys, give it a try if you haven't. It's Texas Ned. It's been around for a while. I just started using it. I think it's a really useful tool to have in your arsenal between Texas rig and a weighted Texas rig and a Texas rig Senko weightless. You got something a little bit different. I don't really like using regular Ned heads. They just get hung up on everything. You lose your bait and the head at second cast, first cast, depending on where you are. It's this is a much better way, more confidence in ability to fish different structure and stuff. So give it a try, guys.